We are so happy to be joined with our dear Belinda Womack, who is also on our podcast. If you haven't checked out that episode, we suggest you do so.
Belinda is just absolutely wonderful. She has a really incredible story too. And when she was a child, Belinda communicated with angels and loving beings in heaven. However, when she turned 12, she turned off her very special heavenly radio receiver and decided to become a scientist. So she did all that she could to rely on the logical and rational part of her brain and earned 2 master's degrees, one in microbiology and one in environmental science. And all of her, this part makes me laugh, that all of her effort to be practical and rely on tangible evidence was blown away on the day while working in a pediatric oncology lab. Archangel Gabriel visited her and changed all that she believed she knew about herself and life on Earth. So Belinda loves to work with the 12 archangels and ascended masters to relay their transformational and deepest healing messages through personal consultations, channel readings, online classes, and live webinars, and even on our podcast, like Chris said, it was such a beautiful experience to commune with these beings. And our conversation today, we're going to focus on how to work with the 12 archangels to heal the inner child.
So, welcome to Conscious Conversations.
Thank you for joining us again, Belinda.
Well, thanks for inviting me. It's so wonderful to see you too.
Yes, and it's so wonderful to see you. We were just catching up before this and just, talking about, since the last time you've been on it, on our podcast, it felt like just forever ago, but I think it was this year. So it's just like how quickly time just flies, but it's all blended together. It's all weird.
So
that's time.
That is time. And, people say it speeds up the older you get, but I almost wonder if it's just like because time isn't linear, that you just, as you grow and become more self-aware, perhaps time changes as you experience it less linearly. Does that make sense?
Who knows?
So, Belinda, we want to talk about the inner child. This was actually a topic that came up in our podcast interview with you. I remember you spoke greatly about forgiveness and things of that sort. So I'm really excited to just hyper-focus on the inner child today. Now, some people might be kind of new to this terminology. So what do you mean when you speak of the inner child?
Well, first of all, I just want to let everyone know again that I'm a channel for the 12 archangels. So they're going to answer this question. The inner child is really your heart. And for every human being, the heart is a doorway to connect with spirit, but to connect to spirit in a way that feels like truth, sounds like truth, smells like truth, brings home the truth. So is the inner child your inner child, Belinda's inner child? Yes. Does that child look like maybe the way that we looked when we were 5 or 6 years old? Sometimes not. But what is important to understand is that the inner child is a doorway again. And so the divine child aspect of the inner child is a way to connect and to commune with angels and ascended masters and loved ones in heaven. Again, in a very pure, innocent, no nonsense kind of way. The other aspect of the inner child is the wounded child. This is just another doorway to reach the subconscious. We human beings love to hold on to our stuff. We love to hold on to our hurts and where we have suffered and our ancestry's story of pain and suffering, our fears, our traumas, our guilt. Oh my goodness, do we love to hold on to guilt. So the wounded child is a doorway into the subconscious. The inner child is all of it. So when we take the time and say, okay, I'm going to connect with the child within me, we begin to really open like a flower that is opening, because we connect with our feelings. And the angels teach us you gotta feel in order to heal. You can't just practice. Gratitude is awesome, gratitude is the attitude, but you can't just practice gratitude without feeling your feelings. You don't have to stay in the hurt, but the child within us needs the hurt to be acknowledged before the trap door to the subconscious will let the old hurt go. And both of you understand what that's about. But that's the power of the inner child. It's a clear doorway for incredible healing, because we create our reality based on our thoughts and our beliefs. 90% of that's in the subconscious. And we would love to all be conscious creators, but that subconscious has to be moved up in vibration. The inner child gives us access to exactly what we need to release and move up, give back to the central sun. And again, that just makes more room for us to widen that door to spirit, for receiving, and for really hearing what's going to make our heart sing. So
what you're saying, or what the archangels are saying, is that essentially the first step to healing and to that new higher vibration and way of living is to first tap into the inner child, to release a lot of the subconscious beliefs that we may have about ourselves. And I'm curious, in what ways has humanity strayed from this relationship with the inner child, and how has this affected us overall?
Well, Christopher and Sarah, it's that humanity lives in their heads. Not every human being, of course, does this, but overall, we love to live in that logical, rational part of our brain. And when we talk about living from your heart, it really does mean the spiritual, intuitive, creative, emotional, bigger part of our wiring of our brain. So how have we strayed from that? Well, we get caught up in the hindrances of mind, control. Oh my goodness, do we love to be in control? We want to know what the future is. We want to be able to, compete with everyone else and feel safe and secure because our ego tells us that we're better. And of course, the angels teach all of that is only going to get in your way. That's what causes you suffering. The inner child is just to have the intention. It's not complicated. To connect moves us back, moves that ego back into heart, the creative, intuitive feeling flow, so that we can hear that we're safe, that we're loved, that we're protected. And also we can hear what it is that we really need and what it is that we really want. So many human beings are driven by wants that they don't even really want that stuff. They're just into the part of their brain that says, I'm supposed to be like everybody else. The inner child says, oh no, I am a one of a kind.
Mm-hmm. It's, one word that really sticks out to me hearing you speak about that is imagination, to reopening those doors to that childlike wonder of seeing the world for the first time, even though we've seen the rain fall or the way the light shines through a glass thousands of times at this age. It's holding space too for that beginner's mind and that wonder and that imaginations of flow.
Well, and our imagination is not just that we make things up. It's actually the inner eye. right?
Mm-hmm.
It's the cave of Brahma. It's the center of intuition. So if we want to really be able to connect with spirit and to receive messages and knowings and feelings, as well as to be that pure visionary, to hold a vision for the higher goodness of all concern, we need that door to be open, but at the right frequency, and to have the innocence of a child in that glorious creative imagination. Creative imagination equals, it's an equation, creative genius. That's how important it is. And I totally agree with you, Sarah. The angels agree with you through Belinda. We're kind of a group committee here talking to you. That when we begin to see through the eyes of a child again, I'm probably twice your age, but when we begin to do that again, then everything starts to have a sparkle, and we can actually see love, and helps us to really experience that those angels are around us and that we have help, and when we're not alone. It can renew our faith and just our hope. My goodness, this earth, schoolroom earth, as the angels call it, can leave us feeling both powerless and helpless these days.
Mm.
So to connect with that inner child and to reawaken that creative imagination and creative genius, all of a sudden we can really see ourselves with just a little bit of asking the question, what am I supposed to do to help? Right? We become positive facilitators of positive, miraculous change instead of, oh my goodness, I'm powerless, I can't do anything.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And what would you say are the key components of even beginning to heal and work with that inner child within?
First of all, keep it simple. What the angels, what they ask for us to do, and it's quite delightful, is you just find a photo of yourself as a child, and you start to have a conversation with the child in that photo. And once that connection is made, and what's important to that connection is that you listen. You just listen. What is the child in that photo saying to you? And of course, if we're very grown up, we go, oh no, I made that up. Well, just keep listening and move the thoughts, I made it up. Just sweep that out of your mind and listen anyway. Because the more we practice, we're actually just, it's like putting WD-40 on a door that's gotten rusty.
Mm-hmm.
And the more we do that, the easier it becomes. And then as we open that door, the inner child will also say to us, if we ask, well, what still hurts? What needs to be forgiven? What's not really allowing me to receive in that abundance or that relationship or that, new opportunity? The inner child knows everything. So it's not just about, oh, wait a minute, I'm talking to a 5-year-old. Oh no, you're opening a door that connects you with infinite wisdom, not only about the universe, but about your own inner deep workings. What skeletons are in your closet? Your inner child knows. It's not complicated. Begin with a photo and listen. Just listen.
I remember when we first spoke, the archangels had delivered this wisdom to me, and I had taken it really to my heart since that interview that we did with you and the archangels, was that to just give little Chris, and I don't want to call him little Chris because he's so big, but little Chris, a high five, and to let him maybe take over that driver's seat once in a while. And since that time, almost every day I ask for him to lead the way and in my exploration of myself and the world. And it's really led me down a path of rapid transformation over the past several
Especially
months.
regarding surrender and
Yeah,
letting go.
surrender and letting go. You had mentioned control in the beginning, and that's definitely been something that I've struggled to let go of a little bit. But since that time, I've really stepped into this place of deeper acceptance, more surrender, and it's just been an incredible unfoldment. So I really heed, heeded and really appreciate that advice.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Well, and little Chris has a lot to say, as does little Sarah. And I totally agree, they're not little at all. But they take the ego and they just move it gently aside and they say, let me be boss. And if we can understand, we're not turning into an immature, misbehaving child. We're opening to the heart that speaks the truth, that really gets to the core of what we need and what we're about, because the heart is the messenger for the soul. So when you connect with that, little Chris and little Sarah or little Belinda, you have access to what your soul wants to express, but on a schoolroom earth kind of mundane world kind of way, right? In a human kind of way.
Mm.
That makes such perfect sense. And it's interesting. A few years ago, I had wanted to do some communicating with my wounded child within, and actually I embodied her and actually went into the space in which I knew a wound was rooted, which I won't get into the whole story, but it was fear. And I felt drawn to go under the covers of my bed and pull them up over my head, because that was often a place that I went when I was a child and I was afraid. And I had Chris ask me, as if I were that 6-year-old girl, questions about my needs and my perceptions and my beliefs. And I responded to those questions as if I were her. And I could feel like I was 6 years old again. Even my voice slightly changed in tone. And I had answers that came out of my mouth that adult Sarah, no matter how much hours of processing I could have done, would never have come to those conclusions, would never have revealed those bits of wisdom that little girl inside of me was holding. And it was so healing. And I even asked her what I could do to help hold that space for her, not try to change her or make her unafraid, because the fact is she was wounded and that's okay. And she told me to let her know she was safe. And so I ended up writing her a letter from adult perspective about how safe she is and how much I do believe in her. It was regarding psychic abilities and the paranormal, and I was scared when I was little. I didn't know what all of this meant and what it was, and I didn't have any support. So me now was able to show her that it would become a gift that would help people and help herself. And I slept with that letter underneath my pillow for many months. And just holding that space for the wounded child within was so healing. So I wanted to share that.
Thank you.
Sarah, that's incredible. That's just, it's miraculous, and that you gave that hurt child the space to express. So the only thing that the 12 archangels would offer to your wounded Sarah, because everybody has a wounded child, is to take the hurts, and you can actually package them up in the color purple, in violet fire, which is the energy of your crown chakra, and release it that way. Now, this energy is, all the chakras, of course, come from love, but this specific chakra in this color is the vibration of forgiveness. And forgiveness has a way to reach the deepest places within us. And to sometimes when we have a wound or a hurt, it's a bit like it's a bit like an unraveling ball of yarn, right? So when we take the hurt that might be a little bit more on the surface and we put that with our intention in violet fire and we say, I release it and I let it go and I forgive it, even if it's unforgivable to forgive, then that color purple, that beautiful violet fire, will go out and find, or go within actually, and seek out every other hurt within us that's at that same frequency or vibration and clear the whole history. So that's why it's so miraculous when you take the time, as you did, to connect with that wounded child and say, I need you. I really value what you have to say. And to also honor that the wounded child doesn't want to stay wounded. That child wants to be loved. That child wants to get out from under the covers. So if we can, work with that incredible just violet fire. It's just using our imagination. Put it in the color purple, or make your covers, if you're going to do that for your listeners. If they're going to go under the covers and have their partner ask their wounded child a question or a few, I love that idea. Just make the blankets violet fire. See them in purple. Wrap yourselves in that color purple. It helps the old story to release so that it's no longer your story. The angels say we're made up of stories. We can edit those stories. We can.
That's beautiful. That's beautiful. That's a reminder of the power we have.
And I love the idea of editing those stories. As a visual person, I can almost see me on like a word processor, deleting stories and editing them and just rewriting those limiting beliefs that we all carry with each other. And tapping into the archangels, I know you mentioned a little bit about how we can use that color purple to really assist in our healing. But what other ways can the archangels assist us, and how can we tap into them for help and communicate with them?
Well, first of all, the 12 archangels work with all of us all the time. We just may not be aware of it. Their role as mentors of Schoolroom Earth is to help us on our journeys of transformation. What does that mean? It means where there is fear, to transform the fear with love, because love is the greatest power. Love is the power that created us. And here on Earth, we get to experience the opposite in vibration, which is fear. So they are always ever present to help us raise that vibration in our mental body and emotionally on all levels, just by saying, hey, I choose love and I want to let this go. So if you feel called to work with the 12 archangels, and I just want to remind, not that you two have forgotten, but arch doesn't mean an archangel. It doesn't mean that they're above any other angel, right? It just means they build bridges. So arch, right, like an archway, they help the human being to build a bridge between their ego and their soul. So, and they build lots of arches all over the universe. But it's just to have the intention. My nickname for them is the 12 big guns. And with no violence, of course, intended. I just mean their power. And of course, they only work with love. But you just hold within your heart when you're talking to your guides. And I call on the 12 archangels, or I call on the archangels. Their number is symbolic. There's more than 12. It's an infinite number. So you just say, I call on the archangels. I call on my guardian angels. I call on all the angels. Thank you for assisting me on my path, and I want to make a positive difference in the world. So the archangels are probably a little bit more present on a conscious level in the lives of healing artists, spiritual illuminators, spiritual teachers, because again, that's their role, is to help humanity to wake up to their divinity, because we forget that, because we get too grown up. That's how it's all connected.
It's interesting because you can feel the power and love of the angels when you do call on them. And I would say I don't go a day without somehow communicating, requesting something, or even just expressing gratitude. The energy is potent and it is there.
It absolutely is. And, I think by tapping into that, what could the world possibly look like if we were all to really hone into that energy and really tap into that vibration of the archangels?
Especially if we ask them for assistance in communing with the inner child and things of that nature.
Well, we would have peace on earth, for one thing, because the archangels help us to take that ego, which is the only part of our humanity that can believe it's separate from everybody else and everything else. So the angels help us to bring that ego home to heart and soul, so that we honor and remember we are all a part of not only the human collective, but of the universe and of divine oneness. And just remembering that can help us to be kinder, not only to ourselves, but to others, and more respectful of ourselves and to others. So it's life-changing, earth-changing, world-changing to shift our vibration with the power of love. And that's what archangels do, right? They help us to move from fear into love. And where there is love, there is healing, there is transformation, there is possibility, and there is abundance. It's just automatic.
I'm feeling called to ask you this question because I was feeling some doubt, not within myself, but almost as if there might be a viewer or multiple viewers that doubt their worthiness of even being able to align with the frequency of these angels, which, of course, we know that everybody is worthy. But if someone is coming from that wounded place of self-worth, wounds, I guess it's redundant, but you know what I'm trying to say. What would the archangels have to say to them about that?
So the angels say, clear religion from your being. And they mean no disrespect for any of the world religions. They just say that religion was created to intercede between the direct connection between the human being and the Creator, and that we all come from the Creator, Mother, Father, God. So unworthiness is only something that the ego can experience, but it can be indoctrinated lifetime after lifetime after lifetime. So if you'll just do a little jump in the violet fire ocean, that's where they like to do, the angels call us to do DNA scrubs. That's what they're called. It's one of my favorite sessions to do. You jump in the violet fire ocean and you just say, okay, angels, wherever the lies of religion, the manipulation stories and the stories that have made me believe that I'm unworthy to receive from spirit, to receive from God, wherever any of that nonsense is, I release it and I let it go. And that's a deepest healing step, but that's the one that's really going to work. And once you just ask, it is lifted up. And then you just fill up with some love and some gratitude for yourself And that old unworthiness story really lifts out. It just dissolves out. And it makes it much easier to go, it's my birthright to be helped. I signed up to come to Schoolroom Earth. And before I signed that agreement, I said, okay, I have the birthright. I have the soul right, the atomic level right to call on all angelic beings and all helpers in heaven to come to my aid to help me get through this school. It's the truth.
You just reminded me actually of the beginning of my journey when I first began calling on spirit. It sounds silly, I felt guilty for asking beings to spend time with my requests. And it was something that it showed me where I was feeling some limiting beliefs about my worth and myself years ago. And it's just so interesting that we would have this like, oh, I'm sorry to ask, but
I know you might be a little busy.
Could you please, and it's interesting, these concepts of time sort of
they're
fall away.
Omnipresent and
Right.
all around
Omnipotent
at all
and
times.
everything. So I just wanted to share that memory because I think some people could perhaps relate to that.
Absolutely. And Sarah, so often, again, in if we go back to the Dark Ages, religions were teaching us that we are way too unworthy to ask for anything. We human beings are just nothing but carnal sins and disasters. So how dare we even consider asking for any kind of support? So a lot of human beings, most human beings, have a block to receiving. And that's also why the archangels really help us to heal that feminine, which is the receiving part of every human being. And we can do that through the inner child and through a different chakra at the other end, the root chakra, by just filling up with ruby. Ruby is so the root chakra energy is red. The angels teach that if you'll work with the color ruby, it's the healing vibration of the color. And so to fill up with divine feminine, divine mother's emotional safety and security will shift us up and out of unworthiness and guilt and help us to receive. So all of those things that we're praying for and asking to come into our movies, into our new story that we're writing, we need that. We have to be at that vibration, which requires us to believe we are worthy to receive. And when the subconscious, here's the thing, when the conscious mind says, I'm not worthy. No, I did that backwards. Conscious mind says, I'm worthy, I want it, I want it, I want it. And the subconscious, 90%, right? So 10% says, I'm going to use my affirmations and I'm going to bring it in. And 90% says, no, I can't ask for that. I'll be punished. I'll be stoned. I'll be thrown out of the castle, whatever that old program is. Then it slows down the receiving. So to just ask that divine feminine, which works very closely with the divine child, to fill us with ruby, emotional safety and security. And then you do one other thing. You say, thank you, Divine Mother. Thank you, Divine Feminine, for receiving through me, for me, that which I asked for or something even better. It's amazing how quick that will work.
Especially or something even better, because we think we know exactly what we need. And
Exactly.
We think we know the limits to our potential when we can't possibly fathom. And so spirit knows, our higher selves know. And that's when beautiful blessings just flow into your life that you couldn't even imagine possible.
Absolutely. Well, we just are so grateful to have talk with you and the angels, and just so grateful for the time that you spent with us today. And before we leave you, is there any other wisdom that you would like to um, impart to our listeners, and as well as any updates that you might have regarding your work that you're doing and anything else that you'd like to share?
Well, what I hear from the angels is ask more often, ask all day long. If you allow the asking to come from the child within you, you'll feel that adult part, that conscious level part of us will feel more secure in what we've asked to receive. And then because the inner child is the divine child, and that's the heart chakra, right? So that's emerald green. Well, emerald green, that energy fills us with trust and faith. So that trust and faith gives us that, oh, I can breathe. It's on its way. I can relax. I can trust. I have been heard. And the angels say, don't pay any attention to any nonsense that you hear. You can only ask once. The prayer goes out there the first time, but we are all children, and the ego sometimes will feel insecure. So just keep asking. It's totally fine. And sometimes through the asking, I like to ask by saying thank you. Thank you, angels, for helping me with fill in the blank. That just will calm us down. And when we calm down, we breathe, we fill up with love, our vibration goes up, and there it is, checks in the mail.
I like that you started with saying thank you as if you've already received it, because really you have. It's just a matter of believing.
Well, and the word thank you is such a high vibration, it just makes us feel better.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Well,
And as far as thank you, and as far as Belinda's work here, I've been really creative since I last spoke with you. So there's all kinds of new programs on my website on belindawomack.com. And so I will just let anyone who's interested just go check that out, because that's the best way to do it. Let your inner child, your divine child, point the way to what might resonate with your heart.
Well, we're very familiar with all of your offerings and what you're doing for the world, and it's so beautiful. And thank you for the puzzle piece that you're offering to this collective consciousness. And again, thank you for joining us, and we can't wait to talk to you again at some point.
Thank you.